Netwerk 24 en Meijin de Weer reporting at the weekend that 17-year-old boy who is currently charged with the murder of Deveney Nel, that when he was 13 years old was accused of assaulting and raping an 11-year-old girl in December of 2020. He went straight back to school in January 2021. That case withdrawn in 2023, and in this year he's back in court again for the murder of 16-year-old Deveney. Now, we can quite clearly see that the state and the criminal justice system has failed one and could be two people, two young girls in this country. And I'm joined now by Lucinda Evans, founder of Police Abafazi Betu Women's Centre and also coordinator at 1 Billion Rising. Firstly, your thoughts on this news that the 17-year-old could and was charged in 2020 with another assault on a young child. Lucinda, good morning.
Good morning, Lester. Good morning, everyone.
What does this news tell you?
Oh, Lester, and I want to say to the listeners, we must pay attention. We must pay closely attention to the systematic failure of what has been going on. Firstly, Lester, when 1 Billion Rising said we want this boy to be tried as an adult, everybody came in and said you have to look at the Child Justice Act. And we understand this. But now I come back to the same question. This child was found, and the severity of the rape is not really spoken about in the article. I would have hoped that Meijin would have shed a bit more light on actually the severity of that rape case, what he actually did to the victim. And number one, this child, the 11-year-old, never got any support from the state. There wasn't counseling. Mom is paying out of pocket. She's still in therapy. Number two, he wasn't found, criminal capable at age 13. And 4 years later, he kills. Now, the question I want to ask is that there was a recommendation after that case was dropped. The recommendation was that he been referred to the Department of Social Development, has speak under correction. That referral went through from the justice system, that he should be going workshops or whatever the program was for young sexual offenders, and this never happened. And so my question I want to ask to the Minister of Social Development is the following, Lester. Was it because the local Department of Social Development, where he was referred to, did they not have the capabilities, the expertise to deal with this young sexual offender? Or was it just that this referral fell through the crater? And who is taking responsibility for this? Because this is an unrehabilitated second offender, Schedule 6. He's a murderer now, from a rapist to a murderer. And there was recommendations that this boy gets the support. But I also want to have the listeners just think about this. What about the parents who failed to inform the school, because he was right back in school in 2021 and he actually started high school. These parents fail to tell the school what their child is. And we know as parents, we protect our children with all of our being. Mm-hmm. But to these parents of this murderer, you knew your son was a violent rapist when he started school, and now he is a murderer.
Lucinda, can I, and we don't discount that it was 11-year-old at the time who had an innocence taken away and has to live with that. There's a 16-year-old who has had her life taken away, and we talk about the systemic failures of a criminal justice system that failed them. Could we also talk about the societal failure that has also failed a 13-year-old boy when in 2020?
Of course we can, Lester, of course. And again, we have to look at the merit of it. Sometimes people become very sensitive, very, very sensitive when we speak about these things. We speak about, and I want to come back to the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, who was mandated to follow up if this recommendation really took place? Because I speak about social development, I speak about the capacity, and not so long ago, in December of 2023, we raised the issue about the lack of social workers at social development, the caseload. And Lester, I actually want to come back to what happens in rural towns if we are already struggling in the metro. It's even worse in the rural towns. I also want to say that this boy has another sibling at the school. And I want us to pay attention to that because there is a worry. I was yesterday in Caledon. I spoke to community members. I drove through because I am concerned that people do not have an avenue to speak about how they feel. I want to ask the Department of Education, what do you have in place for the educators and the children at school? It cannot be a once-off. The conversation needs to still continue. The support to the school and the learners still needs to happen. And then the perpetrator has a sibling still at the same school.
Lucinda, with this boy not being convicted and the case being withdrawn in 2023, wouldn't have gone on a sexual offenders list. But say he was. What does legislation say with minor children and being placed on sexual offenders lists?
I actually don't have the information on that, Lisa. That's a one that I have to research. And probably you would maybe not appear on the sexual offenders register because we also understand how outdated is that sexual offenders register. And that's why the failure of supporting, counseling, whatever was needed for this boy, the rehabilitation that needed to start, it is a dismal failure. And I want to ask this morning as 1 Billion Rising to the Minister of Education, the Minister of Social Development, the Minister of Justice. You have to account. You have to account to all of us. What is, number one, own up to your failure, and number two, what are you going to put in place, if anything? Because this boy will go back to Valkenburg to be reassessed. He was assessed, and he was found, whatever the recommendations was, that set him free to come back into the community and kill. And so what is going to be put in place now for all children, that this never ever happens again? And that we not say we are sorry, we're going to look at it, and nothing happens until the next bad thing will happen, child upon child.
Lucinda Evans, really appreciate your time. She is one of the founders, coordinators of 1 Billion Rising, founder member of Palisa Bafazi Betu. Really appreciate your time.